I remember you asking us to observe breath. Why did you ask us to observe breath and what did it mean?
Uh, did you try observing the breath?
Yes, I did.
So, what did you see?
Um, so initially, when I started observing breath, it was actually very difficult to stay with my breath
Mm-hmm.
because there would be a lot of distractions. I would get carried away with my work.
Mm-hmm.
But I constantly tried to bring my attention back to my breath, and slowly, what I started observing is um, as I kept my attention to my breath, as I'm inhaling and exhaling, I kind of started observing my thoughts too. Um, what is it that I'm thinking right now? Or when I practiced it for even further, I started and I could actually reason out why I'm thinking this way, why I'm feeling this way. Oh, this is the thought that triggered. And I could actually see those train of thoughts and sometimes completely unrelated, which would cause that restlessness. And I also remember one experience. I would go jogging in the morning and it used to become very difficult. I would probably do around 6 kilometers, 7 kilometers, and it used to get difficult. And even at that point, I know I just out of curiosity, I started observing my breath. And as I started observing my breath, I could see how it's actually not the body that is getting tired after 6 7 kilometers. It's the mind. So I could sense there's some sort of connection between the breath. I mean, breath having connection between the mind, and somehow the mind having the connection between the body. And as I could observe my breath and slow my breath or keep my breath calm, I could actually run even more. Um,
Right. See, observing the breath has a myriad of outcomes. It's not one, two, or three. Life is very precious. When you attend to something, you are giving a part of your life. You want to connect with it. You are giving your attention. So, we are recording these videos as we are building a tribe. And if somebody is paying attention to us, it means that they are trying to connect with us. At the same time, we are trying to connect with them. Them trying to connect with us, this attention is fundamental. It's a very valuable part of our existence. Where we pay attention to determines how beautiful our life is. And the most beautiful thing is the most fundamental thing. That's the breath. So, when you pay attention to the breath, naturally a series of things that are good will start happening to you. I do not mean good in the material sense. I don't mean to tell that you will suddenly start earning more, but observing the breath will make you more peaceful. The pandemic unspoken today is restlessness, and that restlessness has been induced by the system because people were not thoughtful enough, or some people were particular that this is what they wanted. When I say these two things, some people who were not thoughtful enough came in at a later point. Some people who wanted to induce this restlessness actually induced it by creating a market for consumption. And this is a very recent development, like post World War, when there were multiple industries which were running out of business because the wartime manufacturing stopped. They uh, summoned, yeah, there are enough documents about that, about how psychology came into play and the domain of marketing started and how they wanted to capture people's attention. So it's all about attention grabbing. when there's a world outside uh, that's grabbing attention, it's very hard for an individual to pay attention to anything now, right? That's one thing. The people who followed were, once they started, there emerged a subject called marketing. Um, and that subject people started studying, and they learned it as rules of marketing or principles of marketing, and they are like blindly followed without knowing the original intent of wanting to create consumerism within the general public to help a few capitalists run their business. But then today, when we are in this scenario, all this is recent. But observing the breath is a timeless truth. Right now, it's even more important because at least you come out of that consumption mindset and pay attention to what's important to you, right?
Yeah, and I can completely relate it to when I was actually working, when I was trying to do some coding, and when I tried observing my breath. That I think that was the activity that was the hardest for me to actually keep my attention on my breath and then also like continue my work. For example, take any household, I can easily just still focus or observe my breath, or even if it is chanting some mantra, you can do that. You can keep your attention on your breath and you can still continue doing your physical household whatever it is. But there's one activity where I could not, like, I realized at the end of it that this activity I cannot keep my focus on my breath was uh, where there was like the modern work system, right? Whether be it coding or something that you have to, the moment you sit in front of your screen, that's where and you have to work. That's where you actually have to come out of that phase of
Yes,
observing your breath and then put your focus fully uh, in that. So now I used to actually wonder that is the way it is, because when you're paying attention to your breath, that is like one point of concentration. But when you are working or when you are reading, that is where you need to put your concentration.
right,
So my question is now then, can we actually uh, have our attention on our breath and also the work we are doing?
right. There are three kinds of activities that we do. You call it work when um, it's something that has been given to you as a task. If you are doing out of your own interest, like maybe getting out of bed or trying to sip a glass of drink water, is also an activity that you do. If somebody tells you to drink water every day at 10:30, exactly 1 liter of water, and for that they start paying you, then drinking water at 10:30 becomes your work, right? So that's the terminology, like the mindset of work. So three kinds of activities that we do. One is natural act, whatever we have evolved to do. These
Mm-hmm.
are natural to our being. These do not interfere with our observing the breath.
Mm.
The first kind of activity. Say there was a hunter, or uh, there were women gathering fruits. They can continue observing their breath, be calm, be serene, still happen to see a bird there or a deer there. And as soon as he sees it, his mind gets into action. He pulls out his arrow and shoots. And there also he is observing his breath for a moment, because the timing of the breath and the timing that he releases the arrow, right, is an art.
Mm.
That's how he makes a good hunt.
Mm.
So that's a natural activity. Or
Mm.
while picking berries, or while feeding the baby, any of these things that are natural,
Mm.
that we have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to do, are natural activities. These don't interfere with the breath. That's the
Mm.
first kind. The second kind is activities that came up after civilization started, but they are patterned.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what came up very recently is unpatterned activity. These two have a very stark difference. Let me tell you the difference between patterned work and unpatterned work. Patterned work is like you are washing vessels, right?
Mhm.
You do not have to think, like attend to every pinpoint that there is. Even if you are looking at it, you do not have to think about how to remove that particular mark. How
Mm.
do I remove this particular mark on the vessel?
Mm.
Like you're washing clothes, it's a repetitive act, but
Mm.
it's a patterned act.
Mm.
It's not an unpatterned act. But while coding, you are constantly thinking as to what could have been the dependency.
Mm.
Why did I get an error message?
Mm.
Right? Uh, could there be a library function that I misspelled, or
Mm.
could there be something like I missed a semicolon somewhere,
Mm.
right? I missed declaration of a variable. What could have happened? So you are. This is not a particular pattern that you already have that you are executing. You are constantly thinking and getting completely involved in a virtual world,
Mm.
right? If you are playing a game, you are getting involved in a virtual world,
Mm.
and then you are tasking your brain with thinking about something that's happening at that moment, which needs your attention continuously.
Mm.
So every moment you continue making a decision. That's how your attention can completely be grabbed.
Mm.
See, when attention is grabbed, for a person whose attention was not grabbed at all, it looks enticing. For example, for the first time, when there was like maybe radio was invented, or people got radio into their homes, or television, or there were movies being played in sheds. Normally, there used to be a projector and a large screen where people flock around and watch. There, for a while, something was grabbing their attention, right?
Mm.
It felt good because that was an anomaly.
Mm.
Like the grass on the other side always looks greener. It was enjoyment because something that they had never seen before had happened, and they gave their attention spans, but that used to last for a very short amount of time. Now, these are activities that some activities, like I told about both work and entertainment, where you have unpatterned activity happening. And under these circumstances, where whatever happens is unpatterned and is not natural to, that's where you will not be able to observe your breath.
Mm.
At the same time, when it's patterned, you can continue to do the patterned activity and observe your breath. For example, even entertainment that is patterned, people like music. Even if they've heard to a particular melody multiple times, they can continue observing their breath and continue listening to that particular music. Um, like even if it's playing in the background, they will not get disturbed by that. Like because they do not have to think, like be surprised by the next syllable after every syllable occurs. You get my point?
Mhm. What about reading?
Reading is not an activity where if it's something, there are two types of reading again. One is scriptural reading, where you read, you go with the flow, um, like a chant, but you're not understanding what you're reading. Um, Another is where you are trying to digest what you are reading. And in both scenarios, in the second scenario, it's impossible, quite impossible when you are trying to understand, because your mind is paying continuous attention. Even though if you have read it multiple times, you don't understand it and you're still reading it, it's slightly possible to observe the breath, but still it's hard. So reading is not an activity which helps you observe the breath.
Mm. So reading also needs your full attention and concentration.
Right, right, right. Even if you are um, reading it like a pattern, still it will take up a lot, because when it's not pattern, when you're not understanding and you're simply reading something because you can read the letters and you know the language, still it's your mind is trying to decipher what you are reading.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are understanding what you are reading, right, uh, then your mind is completely attentive towards understanding it. If you already know what you are reading, you don't even have to look at the script. You will not be reading, you will be telling it out of your memory, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in that case, you can be conscious of your breath. So any chant like the mantras in the Vedas, or anything that people chant like prayers, be it the morning prayers in Islam, or be it whatever sermons, like to, if there's something patterned already and you know it by heart, like you simply say it, then along with that you can observe your breath. But if it's not patterned, something new, you will not be able to observe your breath.
Um, so okay, we talked about observing the breath. In what scenarios we can actually continue doing that. The reason why I ask, in what activities we can do it, I kind of have this question. So because when the one you said, the unpatterned work that was created and that came up after civilization, I kind of started wondering if this kind of job is right, because it is taking all my attention for the whole day, right? Let's say I'm working for 6 7 hours, 7 8 hours in a day. It's just taking my attention completely away. And when I used to meditate in the morning and in the evening, and when I came back home in the evening, I used to be completely disturbed. And when I came back home, like, I used to take a lot of time to actually bring back my mind from that restless state to, okay, I can begin to even sit, just sit,
Right,
you know. So then I started categorizing my work. I mean, my work as in my activities. Is it good for me? Is it bad for me? Now, in that sense, now how do I say if this activity is good for me? Is it bad for me? Now, reading is obviously good for me because it is giving me knowledge. It is giving me wisdom. There are so many things I'm getting out of it. And in terms of the unpatterned work that I do, the IT work, is something that is my bread and butter, right? So I have to do it.
yes. It's a balance. There's nothing like absolutely right or wrong or good or bad in these things. This all depends on your awareness. You should be aware that your work, when you are doing some kind of coding, or when you are attending a conference, or anything related to your office work, you are doing unpatterned work which will not let you observe your breath. You should be aware of this. And you should also be aware that when you are reading, you will not be observing your breath. This is also an unpatterned activity that you're doing. Now, will you do that or not, all depends on what you want, right? If you can pick up a simpler job which will pay a little less but continue sustaining your life, because you think that observing your breath is more important in that time slot, well and good, right? If you think you need this kind of money, or if you think this is the only place or this is the only job which will give me that kind of money, if you can't figure another way out and you want something badly, that's why you are doing this, you're doing it because you want it, right? It's all about desire there. And even while reading, you really want to have that knowledge. Like in the meantime, observing the breath doesn't sound so interesting to you. You think you can get something quickly out of reading a book within an hour and improve your life more than observing the breath for an hour. would improve your life. So it's all a balance, how much priority you give and what you desire for.
When when you're now, the way I'm kind of making sense of all this is, we are s- we are giving too much importance to observing the breath, right? Why do we need to observe the breath in the first
Right,
place? Like, why do we need to have that constant attention? Why do we need to give that attention to our breath for that maximum period of time? That's what we are trying to say. Like, if a job is, if you're not able to focus on your breath for a long time during your job, maybe we you try switching your job, in the sense that we are
right,
actually giving lot of importance in just staying with your breath.
right.
And why?
Yes. Mm, you are, let me tell you, there are like, there are so many things that I could tell that come out of observing the breath. Let me start with something very simple. Your experience, see, your life is an experience, right? For how long you live could be 100 years or 70 years or 120 years or whatever. That's similar to you having a slot, like a 45-minute slot to play a game, say. That 45 minutes went, for example, when you were a kid and you were given 45 minutes to play a game, and you would be like sent home after those 45 minutes, it would have felt like it just disappeared. Like, I went to play, I probably, you're playing volleyball or something, I got a pass twice or thrice and already 45 minutes are over. You are continuously anxious about getting another pass or putting the ball in the right place. So you're continuously anxious. You have no idea how that 45 minutes went away, right? But try spending 45 minutes observing your breath. The experience of time is something different. When you experience more in the same 45 minutes, don't you think that you have lived longer?
Yeah.
If you can stay with your breath, the experience of life becomes much, much larger than it is for anybody else who has the same time. Though I have 24 hours in a day, which you have two, depending upon the activities and the engagements that we have for those 24 hours, it could seem like a millennium or it could seem like a passing second. If somebody is engaged in playing a video game that has completely captured his attention, I've seen people play for 6 hours, 8 hours, right? And after that, they come out like they've spent no time at it at all, like they cleared another level.
Yeah.
But you look at somebody who sat doing penance for 8 hours, he comes out rejuvenated, like a new person. So, where you spend your time defines how you experience time, though it might be a numerical constant. The experience of time differs from person to person and from person to person because of the activities and the amount of engagement they have. That's just one thing. And all the miracles that have been described in all the scriptures have started by observing peace. How do you come to peace? It's by silencing your mind. The mind is restless. It's like a wild elephant that has to be held. And how can you hold that wild elephant off the mind? It's only through the breath. Why can you do it? Because breath is mind exists to preserve the body. Breath is fundamental to preserving the body, and the mind which exists to preserve the body can, of course, get lost in that activity which exists to preserve the body, without which the body will perish and the mind will perish. The mind wants to sustain itself, and that's why it can easily engage in observing the breath. Any other activity, the mind can let go of. It need not be concerned about. But the mind, to exist, it needs a life, and for the life to exist, the mind has to connect with the body, and it, of course, knows from the moment you're born that only with breath can the mind exist. So, physically, multiple things happen when we observe the breath. Uh, let's come back to that some other time. We'll discuss about what physically happens, how the breath changes, how the body changes, what you observe within, and no matter who is guiding you, that person should be able to help you out with so many beautiful things, like explanations of how observing the breath helps you grow in the direction of enlightenment. Otherwise, probably you haven't yet found somebody to help you. That's a that's the core.
I have a couple of questions which probably we can discuss later. I'll say what are those so that we don't forget for uh, I don't forget it. One is um, how beautiful our life is and depends on where we are spending our time, or how meaningful our every moment is, then depends on where we spend our time in,
How we spend it,
how we spend it.
right?
Then now I have kind of uh, I have some critical points about then how we have designed our system today, how we have designed our work culture. Then we talk about work life balance by creating that imbalance. So I'm starting to get many questions
Right,
about the
right,
system itself,
right.
do we and I want to conclude on that point. That is first question. I
Yeah.
want to conclude that this is what is right for us to live
Mm-hmm.
a meaningful life.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to conclude on that point with respect to the system and the kind of work that we are doing majorly, because we cannot completely disconnect from the system.
Right,
We still have to earn our bread and butter, right?
right.
So that's another question. Now, the third question that I have is, what is the end goal of this observing the breath? Fourth question is, what is the intention or behind observing the breath? Who should be doing this?
Mm.
Why would I be doing this?
Mm. Mm.
And probably the last question I would ask is, how is it going to change my life?
Sure, sure.
And is it worth it?